Welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at tonight's 10-game slate here on DraftKings. And you got a lot of expensive pitching options and a lot of pitchers that kind of take a lot of teams off the table.
And Coors with the Blue Jays. So that's pretty exciting. But as you mentioned, yeah, there's quite a few solid pitchers on the slate. So difficult to fully know where to go, but at the same time, a lot of high-end options that you want to pay up for. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, how could I forget to start things off for the Coors game? I mean,
how? Blue Jays versus Rockies, a pitcher may die. Like, I'm not convinced that a pitcher won't die here. Just a Josh Donaldson liner off their face or something weird like that.
Jeez, sir, such a violent morning from you.
I watched Game of Thrones last night, and I'm ready for everything in my life to just be absolutely epic at all times. So I have high standards for all my entertainment now.
Looking at the first game here, you get the Mets and Nationals, Noah Syndergaard versus Joe Ross, and one of the lower expected games on the slate. And this one, I mean, I'm not really looking at both sides for offense. I think you're going to find most of the batters we talk about kind of dwindled within just a few games. Joe Ross is a guy who, I mean, you can look at some lefties against him, but overall, I mean, a quality right-handed arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm probably not going with him tonight, but he is a quality arm and in a decent matchup. The interesting thing about this slate is I feel like the teams that I kind of like some of the value pitchers, I have a feeling I'm going to end up having to use the hitters in that game against them. Which is kind of uncomfortable, but there's another game I'm looking at, the A's, where I don't necessarily like the matchup for them, but they're cheap. So the Mets, I feel like I might sprinkle in some of those players in some of my lineups, but I do kind of like Ross in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Ross is solid, and I think, if you look at his numbers against lefties, 350 WOBA allows just kind of where you're looking at as far as if you do. I do think they're going to be low owned. I do think you can kind of take a contrarian Granderson or a Neil Walker, as Asdrubal Cabrera type guys. They're not too expensive either.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, a lot. When you go through it, it's 10 games, but a lot of these lineups are just overpriced. At least on DraftKings. So that's kind of an issue you have to run into pretty early.
Yeah, and on the national side, I'm not really looking to take anyone against Noah Syndergaard there.
No, yeah. Harper still 4,400 against Syndergaard. That's just too much.
Yeah, definitely. And next one here, you got the Rangers in Yankee Stadium. Chichi Gonzalez versus Ivan Nova. And this one, I mean, you're looking at a lot of offense on really both sides here. I mean, Nova's going to give you a pretty average start at best, and you're looking at Gonzalez. I mean, Gonzalez is a guy who last year picked on quite a bit. So I do think this is one of those games that's going to step up and be those offensive targets. And on the Rangers side, there's plenty of value there. Yankees, I mean, they're all priced up pretty heavily.
Yeah, I loaded this gun yesterday, and it shot out with one of those little flags with the like happy birthday or whatever. But I'm ready to do it again today. I think you have to like the Yankees lineup here, even though they are overpriced. So probably be going back to that well again. And I do like the Adrian Beltre Shin Soo Choo combo on the Rangers side.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at that Rangers team. I mean, Desmond and Odor kind of really the only guys that are priced up entirely. And you're looking at all those lefties against Nova. I mean, Nova 372 WOBA allowed 1.77 home runs per nine.
Yeah,
I really like Chu and Mazar at those price tags. And I'll even take a stab at Fielder given the pitching on tonight's slate.
Yeah, definitely agree there. I think this is a nice spot to find some value.
Yeah, and I can't see myself paying up for a ton of Yankees bats. I mean, not that it's a bad matchup, but guys that, in the higher 4K range, I just think with tonight's pitching is going to be tough for me. I mean, I'll have some shares and some lines with them in it, but they're not going to be a core for me.
Yeah, no, not a core. They They just have a lot of zeros to redeem for me from yesterday, so I might throw them in again for that reason. But yeah, definitely overpriced.
Yeah. And next one here at the Red Sox and Rays, Eduardo Rodriguez versus Blake Snell, two lefties on the hill in Tropicana. I'm not really big on the Red Sox offense today. I mean, you can obviously look at some guys like Alexander Bogaerts, who's hit lefties pretty well. Hanley at 4-1 is intriguing just because he's hit southpaws really well, and that price tag's kind of back down. But outside of that, I mean, I don't really see myself paying up for a Betts or looking at Pedroia or Ortiz or those types of guys here.
Yeah, Hanley has become a pretty intriguing factor these last few weeks. So I'm always intrigued by him, it seems, especially against the lefty. But beyond that, yeah, again, I think I'm going to be paying up for pitching when it's all said and done. So won't have many Red Sox shares.
Yeah, and on the Rays side of things, I really like Logan Forsythe and kind of some of the Rays value guys against lefties. I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez really hasn't been great. You look at Tim Beckham in 3-4, you got some really cheap options, just depending on what they do with that lineup. But Forsythe and Longoria are kind of the two proven lefty masters, and I definitely don't mind them. Longoria a little bit more expensive, but definitely still in play.
Yeah, and then maybe Desmond Jennings as sort of that punt guy, but other than that, yeah, I don't think we're stacking Rays, but I do like those calls.
Yeah, I just think one-offs wise, I mean, they can give you some value. And Forsythe's at a really mid-tier price that kind of takes a lot of guys out in different ranges.
For sure.
So, Cubs and Reds, Jake Arrieta versus Dan Straley. And it's in Great American Ballpark, obviously very friendly for Cubs bats. I mean, obviously you're not really looking at the Reds. And Arrieta, I mean, even though it's in a bad ballpark, he's a guy who's going to really take advantage of this Reds offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that strikeout rate against righties. So, yeah, we're definitely liking that matchup. Normally you like the lefties here, but I think you're staying away from Votto and Bruce tonight. So, Arrieta and cash for me. Is that where you're at as well?
Yeah, he's definitely a consideration. I mean, he's easily, for me, the top guy tonight. I mean, a heavy favorite. Yes, he's on the road, but you look at his Reds team, I mean, bottom 10 hit well above, the strikeout rate's high. So, yeah, for me, it's an easy stay away from the Reds.
Yeah.
Cubs, though, I mean, interesting here. I mean, they're priced up. Obviously, you got Bryant Rizzo over 4K, but I know Jason Hayward struggled 3-6 against Straley is intriguing. But for me, I mean, I kind of like the secondary pieces here for the Cubs.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what catcher they throw out there, that might be a target of mine. And Rizzo, I think this is a night to pay up for Rizzo if you can fit him in, but obviously 5,300 is a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's tough, and we kind of saw that. I mean, we saw that last week where, paying up at first baseman was really hard to do with the pitching on the slate, and that's kind of how it is a little bit today. I mean, there's not a ton of cheap options for you to kind of spin down to, but looking at these guys, I mean, Javier Baez at 3-6, intriguing. As you mentioned, I mean, kind of hoping Wilson Contreras is the guy back there behind the dish, and I don't even mind, taking a shot at Hayward at 3-6, up at the top of the lineup.
Yeah, those three are the ones. The catcher spot, Baez and Hayward are really solid. And then obviously if you want to pay up, it's Rizzo. But yeah, no, definitely solid.
Yeah, and the Cubs kind of come in for me as kind of the first. I mean, you can stack the Rangers and Yankees games, but I do like stacking the Cubs here. I mean, you'd have to pay down to pitching to do it, but we always know their upside, and it's in a great ballpark where there's a ton of power to lefty and right-handed bats.
Right.
Next game here, you got the Indians and Braves, and the Indians are really on a roll right now.
Jesus, no kidding, huh?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are at really nice price tags too. Up top, I mean, Lindor's expensive, but the way he's been hitting, you can understand. But getting guys around there like a Rajay Davis at 4-3, if Kipnis is in the lineup, 4-2 is really nice. And
yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy I'm hoping for. I'm hoping Kipnis is in the lineup, and I'll definitely be plugging him in potentially in cash games. He's not killing you for salary. Obviously, it is over 4K, but it's not a killer, and he's a super high-end option against Gant. So, yeah, definitely like that one. And then, I mean, I kind of want to venture into the bottom of this lineup a little bit, and I don't know if that's misguided or not, but I'm looking at, like, Chisenhall and Gomes, and I'm like actually considering them, which isn't something I normally do for the Indians, but that's kind of where I'm at so far.
I think you can. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
with you. I mean, on tonight's slate, I think you can look at the back end guys for the Indians because one, their price tags are cheap, and one, it's a great matchup. And as you mentioned, I mean, those names and Jose Ramirez, Chisenhall, Night Quinn at 3-4, really intriguing. You look at Gant. I mean, small sample size, but 359 will allowed. He's one that has allowed a ton of hard ball rate to both lefty and righties, and even in that play at 3-2 is intriguing. I mean, it's not the best ballpark in Turner, but at those prices, I don't really care, and I do think Vegas wise that rental is pretty accurate as far as being one that kind of target tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of home run power, it's an issue, but I do think there's some upside in this Indians offense, regardless of the ballpark tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And the way Trevor Bauer's pitched it takes the Braves out of play. I do think he is in play, of course, as far as being a pitcher. 12.8's a little expensive, nearly being 900 cheaper than Arrieta, but that's a kind of a serious spin down. But overall, Bauer's been great, and I think he takes these Braves completely out of play.
Yeah, definitely takes him out of play. The Braves have been really annoying lately. They're not the cupcake they sort of have been for a while. So that's kind of annoying. I still like Bauer. I think he wins this matchup pretty convincingly. But overall, yeah, he's borderline cash for me. But at the same time, if you're paying up for Arrieta, maybe you go a different direction.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that price tag's the only thing that kind of throws him off.
Yeah.
Next game here you got the Cardinals and Royals. Adam Wainwright versus Danny Duffy. Once again, I mean, these Royals are really cheap as usual. I think that's been the case the last few weeks, and I like these guys as value bats. I'm not really on them as a stack, but I think once again, 3-4 Lorenzo Cain and Alex Gordon at 3-2. Those type of names are really cheap and you're getting quality hitters against a Wainwright who hasn't really been that great and been average. I mean, yes, he's had some quality starts of late, but overall against this Royals team, I think those guys are cash game playable and GPP values.
Alex Gordon is the nice value you mentioned like a few minutes ago. But yeah, Gordon for sure, 3,200. He's been doing well, and obviously just back in the lineup. So you gotta like that price. They haven't really moved him up, even though he's been doing well. So definitely someone to target. But in the same vein, I'm not against Wainwright as a tournament guy. He's only 7,400. The Royals are good, but they haven't been quite themselves consistently this year. So if Wainwright can figure this out, and he's kind of one of the few guys lower that I think has some decent upside. So that might be a guy I look at 7,400 in a tournament. Obviously not cash or anything, but I think that's a decent matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Royals and you look at that lineup. I mean, the one thing that scares me still is just that they're getting a little bit healthier. And I still look at that lineup 1-6 now with Alex Gordon back. And it's a stay away situation for me personally. I can't really see myself using Wainwright. I mean, I know the price tag's nice, and on the slate where there really isn't a ton of cheap options. I kind of rather stay away, and I would even look at a guy later, Colin McHugh at a similar price tag.
That's fair. And Danny Duffy, I'm not really in on him. I actually think this is a night to look at some Cardinals for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, Duffy 3.38 will be allowed to lefties or to right-handed bats going back to last year. 1.46 runs per nine. I mean, Kauffman Stadium. I mean, in the summertime, it's not a bad place to hit. I mean, that warm weather gets up there, and looking at a lot of those right-handed bats. I mean, Diaz 4.3, Holiday 4.1. Piscotty 4K. I love Piscotty on today's
slate. Yep, I like both of those guys you mentioned. Yeah, that's a really good call. And even Matt Holliday in the middle. I think that's a nice three-man stack that doesn't kill you in terms of salary. So that's definitely something to look at there. And it's too bad Danny Duffy can't just go back to those first 4 innings in his first start of the year where he was just smashing hitters. Because ever since then, it seems like the wheels have just kind of come off. But, yeah, he's got a tough matchup tonight for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Those Cardinals bats are appropriately priced, and I like them quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to the beast of the night as far as
Yeah.
offense goes. I mean, Blue
Jeez.
Jays and Rockies, and I mean, two guys that are actually quality arms. I mean,
Yeah.
Marco Estrada's been solid. The regression is coming for Estrada. John Gray's been good, but in cores, obviously with these two offenses, I mean, it's going to be really tough to pass up. And you do have some cheaper options. I mean, I guess you could say as far as back end guys for that Toronto team, and of course you have Encarnacion and Donaldson as being the focal points, but I don't mind a Russell Martin or Tulo or Pilar or Devin Travis type guys.
Yeah, Martin was the guy I was looking at. If what catcher were we talking? Oh yeah, if the Cubs catcher isn't someone I like, then this might be an option that I'm looking for here. 4,100 is obviously expensive on FanDuel, but at the same time, it's pretty much the going rate for Coors these days. So yeah, I like him. And obviously, I mean, the Blue Jays stack in play here.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And Ezekiel Carrero, I mean, 3.8 is your cheapest option on this team, and he's hitting leadoff. So, I'm a fan of Gray. I think he's a solid pitcher. I don't think he pans out. For some reason, I can actually see him maybe the Blue Jays don't do quite the damage that we expect them to on the first night here in Coors. I do think I'm definitely going to have my share. But I think you can kind of look elsewhere too as far as price tags go for cheaper. I mean, I kind of don't mind the Cubs. I kind of don't mind the Texas and Yankees bats. As far as options, I don't mind, look at some other guys there. But obviously, I mean, they're still the top tier of the night. But, I wouldn't be surprised if we're a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, so maybe do that Correa Martin grouping and then, stack a different lineup.
Yeah, I think so. And I do think you want to kind of make it a core, and Correa is going to be a guy who I'll have a ton of just because that price is too cheap for a guy hitting leadoff in cores.
For sure.
I actually like the Rocky side more here. Estrada's been solid, but I think that regression's coming. I think that starts tonight. And you're looking at Estrada, I mean, really home run prone. I mean, to lefty since last year, 1.26 home runs per 9. And you look at righties too, I mean, just over 1. So I do think this is a really intriguing option. DJ LeMahieu left the game. If that means Adams comes in and hits in the top of the lineup or something else happens, there's some value here in this Rockies team.
Yeah, no kidding. If he does end up going in there, I mean, getting a Rockies Coors bat for 2K would be a nice little bump there. And then I mean, you kind of look at the end there. Mark Reynolds, I actually don't hate for 4,100. But again, at the end of the day, Arenado is the guy. Carlos Gonzalez is one of the highest end options of the slate, and obviously Charlie Blackmon. But you don't need me to tell you that those three are in play tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those three are certainly the guys that kind of target.
Yeah.
And really, those are my favorite three from this game. I mean, I think you do look at those high-priced Rockies options, and if you try and pay down, or if you're trying to kind of go a little bit, stars and scrubs, I do think those are the three to kind of look at to build around.
Yeah, as you mentioned, John Gray is a good pitcher. So while I think the Blue Jays eventually get to their run total, it might not be from the top of the lineup even.
Yeah, I certainly think, I mean, obviously 15 runs is certainly possible with this Blue Jays offense in cores. That wouldn't shock me, but it also wouldn't shock me if it's just kind of a
3 or 4, yeah.
A murky 7 runs, and it comes from a couple other guys, and it's not particularly thrilling as far as DFS standpoint goes.
Right.
But obviously, I mean, it's a bold call to take, but it could be something tonight. Next one here, I mean, you got Chase Field and Vincent Velasquez making his first start back after the return. Really solid guy who, overall, I mean, at that price tag, I mean, I don't know how healthy he is, and I'm not going to really own him tonight, but you look at some of these Arizona bats, I mean, they're a little bit expensive. I'm not quite sure if they're worth it for me against Velasquez.
Yeah, I looked at that and I go, hey, I like him. Why is he 7,900? So Yeah, I think you're a little worried about him tonight, but at the same time, he kind of he doesn't take them out of play, but it's going to be tough to pay up for a Jake Lamb or a Segura tonight for me. I mean, obviously, I always love Goldschmidt, but those two in particular, it's going to be tough for me to pay up for them.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, even these value guys, I don't really feel comfortable with because I like guys better in the range.
Yeah.
Um, Michael Bourne or Wellington Castillo or Peter O'Brien, I don't feel comfortable kind of using them here. I mean, Velasquez been pretty quality, and unless he comes in and just really isn't himself again, then I guess
Right.
you're looking at a pretty good situation as far as a guy coming in as far as behind him, and then you got Arizona, going off against the bullpen guys. So overall, I mean, the Diamondbacks are still in play. I'm not going to really having a ton of exposure. They kind of rank lower on the end of kind of high-profile offenses tonight for me.
Yeah, and I wonder, even if you're trying to be contrarian, how low you're going to get these Diamondbacks bats. Like, I still see Goldschmidt being 10 to 15%, even worst case scenario. So, I don't know how much of an advantage you're going to get by rostering these guys, and I don't love the matchup. So, it's probably a stay away for me tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have a couple of shares, but I'm out for the most part with you. I mean, it's going to be limited to maybe one or two lineups where I get some guys in there from.
Yeah.
As far as the Philly side of things goes, I mean, Robbie Ray's an intriguing option. 9.3 is a little expensive, but you look at the Phillies. I mean, obviously they're bottom five in WOBA against lefties. In this ballpark, I mean, I can look at some guys like a Tommy Joseph or even a Maikel Franco. I know Franco hasn't really hit lefties that well, but at those price tags, I mean, I can definitely take some shots at some of those right-handed bats in that ballpark because it really has been a great park to hit in, and some of those Arizona pitchers really haven't pitched well there this year.
For sure.
So a couple options there, but overall, I mean, it's GPP. It's not cash game, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So next one here, you get the Houston Astros and Los Angeles Angels. Matt Schumacher versus Colin McHugh. Colin McHugh is the guy who I was talking about at 6,900. I mean, he's a guy I'd rather take a shot on in comparison to Wainwright for a cheap guy. For me, I mean, I don't really like a ton of hitters from this game at all. I mean, obviously Trout's still very much in play, but he's expensive. And Schumacher's just been way too good lately, and I think he kind of racks up a ton of strikeouts against this Houston team.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the one mid-tier guy. Do we trust Schumacher at this point?
I am. I mean,
yeah, why not? Obviously his track record isn't great, but at this stage, I think he's thrown together enough quality starts that you start to trust this a little bit. Obviously the Astros can get to you, but at the same time, they're pretty vulnerable themselves. So I do like this matchup for Schumacher.
yeah, definitely. And if these Houston bats were cheaper, I would definitely make them more priority to be contrarian. They still are. I mean, you look at Schumacher. I mean, you go back to last year, 3.36 wOBA allowed to lefty or to right-handers, a big 1.71 home runs per nine. So, yeah, there is some upside here for this Houston right-handed team. But there also is, big time upside for Schumacher, and I'm taking him over kind of looking at the Houston bats.
Yeah, definitely agree there.
So, an Angel side of things, I really just don't like anyone I look at this lineup, and it's the same guys we talk about, and I don't really even like them on tonight's slate.
Yeah, you kind of go, okay, CJ Cron, all right, Giavotella. And then I don't mind Cole Calhoun, but at the same time, there's just so many other options. I think he kind of falls by the wayside at some point in your process,
Yeah, I think so too. And Calhoun's kind of the only real honorable mention as far as the one being outside of Trout there.
Yeah.
Next one here, I mean, Oakland and San Francisco. You were talking about this game as far as being the Oakland bats being pretty cheap and just Samardzija not really being a sure thing out there.
It was weird. The first time I went through this, I was like, okay, I like Jeff Samardzija as a tournament guy just because he's in that mid-range and not a bad matchup. And obviously A's are only projected for 3 runs. So that checks out. But then you start going through and you're like, all right, catcher. Oh, Vot. Okay. Against the righty. Okay. Oh, Billy Burns, 3K. Oh, Danny Valencia, 3,900. And And then you start going through it, and you're like, oh, Jed Lowry, 2,500. And you're like, wait, I kind of like this. And obviously they're not a high upside, and it's going to be hard to compete with the higher end stacks. But I think you can definitely throw these guys in there as sort of one-offs and stuff like that, and potentially even in cash.
Yeah, I mean, a vote in cash, as you mentioned, a Lowry punt play. I mean, these guys are cheap, burns up top 3K or crisp, depending on what the lineup situation is. But you look at Samardzija, I mean, you go back to last year. I mean, obviously he's been a little bit better this year, but 351 WOBA allowed 1.72 was pretty home runs per nine to lefties. It was pretty extreme last year, but you look at all those bats. I mean, a lot of left-handers. I mean, and obviously Valencia and Davis have that big-time power, and they'll make you pay if you miss in the zone. So I don't mind them with you. I think 1 through 5 they're certainly playable in cash game values. I mean, I don't think it's in cash games. I don't see myself really having more than one of them. But I think
right.
You look at where things plug in, and Oakland kind of comes in as the value team of the night.
That's more where it came in. Instead of like building lineups, it was more like, okay, look at all these stacks. They're all super expensive. I might have to be like, even though I don't love the matchup, I might have to dive down here at some point, just because to make things work. So that's definitely how I'm looking at that one. And again, I like Samardzija as a tournament play, especially with park factors and everything considered. So I think there's value on both sides there, which is actually kind of rare. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And on the Giants side of things, I mean, I really like 1 through 6 tonight. I like some of those values, and guys like Posey, Belt, and Panic, the guys who I've kind of stayed away from over the last few days because of the prices have been high, they've kind of dropped down a little bit down to earth, and I do think they're more plausible now. And I like an Angel Pagan at 3.5, and I do like Span up top at 3.5 as well. So I do think they're playable, even at a really cheap Brandon Crawford at 3.2. I do think the Giants are kind of a stackable offense tonight, and I like them as one-offs as far as all formats go.
Yeah, I think you have to like Crawford, Pagan, and Span's prices there, and Posey always expensive, but decent matchup tonight. So yeah, definitely like that grouping.
Yeah, so that's going to wrap things up here with the DK Daily Trot. Be sure to check out DailyFantasyCafe.com for all our great tools and content.